It is 6:01. So I think I will officially call this meeting of the Penn Valley Municipal Advisory Council to order. Oh, things are jumping around on my screen. Okay. With that, we can just jump right to a roll call, I guess. Ryan Everson is present. Rob Tribble. No, seems like we did get an email saying that Rob may not be here. Looks like he's not. Teresa Dietrich. No, Teresa. Doug Moon. Got no audio from you, Doug, but there you are.
Here.
Rick Noley.
Present.
Nancy Pierce. And Bob Winters is present. We see you, Bob. Okay, so where does that leave us, Sarah? Are we, let's see. Yeah, we're okay, right? We have quorum for, yes. Okay. And with that, we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Sorry, a little distracted here. The Pledge of Allegiance. It's a little tough to do this on Zoom. So like we did last month, we'll just do it in earnest, but not necessarily in unison. Oh, and I see Teresa just popped in. Here we go.
I pledge allegiance
To the
to the
flag
flag
of
of the United States of America
and to
and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Sarah, could you make a note that Teresa is now present? Hi, Teresa.
Howdy. I'm here.
You just missed it. It was exciting. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the Penn Valley Municipal Advisory Council audience or staff requests a specific item to be removed from the consent agenda for separate action. Any item removed will be considered after the motion to approve the consent agenda. Item A being the approval of meeting agenda for tonight, May 20th, 2021. And item B being the approval of the meeting minutes for.
You just went mute.
I just
Okay,
lost
you're
audio.
mute, Brian.
How's that?
There we go.
Yeah, I was doing the space bar thing and it just kicked me out. Okay, where'd you lose me? I can
On
just
the
start
consent agenda, matters considered a consent.
Okay, I'll just do the whole spiel again for the sake of saying it was done properly. Item number 2 is the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the Penn Valley MAC audience or staff requests a specific item to be removed from the consent agenda for separate action. Any item removed will be considered after the motion to approve the consent agenda. Item A being approval of the meeting agenda for tonight, May 20th, 2021. And item B being approval of the meeting minutes for our last meeting, which was April 15th, 2021. With that, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Okay,
Did everybody get that?
sorry. Struggling with 2 screens here. I thought it was going to be easier than having paper spread all over my desk, but it is not. Item number 3 is time for public comment. This time is set aside for persons wishing to address the Penn Valley MAC on any matter of interest that is not on the agenda. Members of the public can provide general comments on items that are of interest to the public and are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board, or on a particular agenda item via chat, through Zoom, or by phone during the meeting using the information provided. Action will not be taken at this meeting on citizen comments. The Penn Valley MAC, however, after hearing from interested citizens, may place items on a future agenda so proper notice may be given to all interested parties. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available to the public through the county's website at mynevadacounty.com. Comments regarding lack of community I am on the minutes from last month. I am all over the place. I really apologize, everybody. My apologies. Okay. So with that, we will open this up for any public comment for any items that are not on the agenda. I would like to add, if I do not particularly see, okay, I do. Anybody who is interested, I would ask, and this is just a request, it's not a requirement, if you would identify yourself and kind of your location in Penn Valley and maybe how you heard about this meeting. We're trying to gauge our marketing strategy, as it were, and just kind of trying to get a feel for what may be drawing people into these meetings. And so with that, I will open it up for any public comment.
I'll introduce myself. I've attended a couple of the meetings. My name's Carrie Sinoff. I actually live in Eastern Nevada County, and I'm here on behalf of my role with Gold Country Broadband Consortia, which we work with 4.5 counties, in which Nevada County is one of them. So I'm here just to provide support to anything that has to do with broadband issues, broadband policy, broadband expansion. I work a lot with Sarah from Nevada County and Jeff Hornsby.
And actually, Carrie, we don't have a broadband item on the agenda tonight, but it's possible it could come up in public comment. But yeah, there's nothing agendized on broadband today, just so you know.
And then just a little bit further, I also work with the energy and climate programs that are offered through PG&E. So just here on any public support I can provide and trying to stay in touch with what you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Appreciate that. Appreciate your presence here. Okay, any other public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 4. We are going to be hearing from NID Director Rich Johansson regarding what we were calling the NID backbone extension and its relation to the Penn Valley area. So with that, I will turn this meeting over to Rich Johansson. Rich, go ahead.
Yeah. Ryan, thank you. So the backbone extension program, let's start with the baseline of where we're at now. So the Lake Wildwood and Penn Valley areas are served by the Lake Wildwood water treatment plant that has a capacity of about 3.6 to 4 million gallons of daily. We have reached a capacity in the past of 3.8. Currently in the winter time, we're under 2 million gallons per day. In the summertime, it goes up to about 3 million. About several years ago, the fire hydrants in Penn Valley, some of them were only giving 5 gallons a minute. Currently, NID went into, did some upgrades, and now almost all of them are 1,000 gallons a minute. The source of water for the Lake Wildwood water treatment plant is Newtown Canal. And that has been shut down 3 times in the past. 49er fire, where the water treatment plant ran out of water. Jones fire and the Lobo fire. So we have 2 issues there. One is somewhat of a non-reliable source of water for the treatment plant, and also water quality concerns. Because one of the times it was shut down was because an air attack plane had to drop retardant on it. So the backbone extension program utilizes the E. George water treatment plant outside of Grass Valley. That currently is about 18 million gallons per day capacity. And the idea, and we've done this, sending it down to different parts of the community. The idea is to put a pipeline, and there's 4 alternatives. The number 2 alternative seems to be the favorite, the shortest, and it hooks up more people. But run a pipeline down Rough and Ready Highway, through Rough and Ready, to Rough and Ready Road, through there, and then when you get to the end, kind of go overland into the distribution system, not into the water treatment plant per se, into the distribution system. And that would add an additional 2 million gallons per day. The beauty of that is that Lake Wildwood water treatment plant also is over 40 years old, so it has to be upgraded. And during that renovation, it will be also increased from 4 million to 5 million gallons per day capacity. So the idea that Rough and Ready has never been served with treated water before by NID, and yet that is a community that has been paying property taxes for 100 years. And so by going through Rough and Ready, we not only start getting new connections to the treated water, but it puts them into their wells are going dry. We all know that. The wells around Penn Valley are kind of suffering, and especially kind of this year. So it gives them an alternative to hook into treated water. The ultimate goal is to run that pipeline from Grass Valley, Rough and Ready, into Lake Wildwood, then by extension it comes into Penn Valley. The other goal is to put another pipeline connecting Rough and Ready, right at probably the Rough and Ready Road and Highway intersection, right on down Rough and Ready Highway into Penn Valley Drive. So it'd be somewhat of a triangle. And then that would give Penn Valley more water, a more reliable source of water. And it kind of just helps everything out, where allows us to have a very secure supply. And up until now, we have funded, the project has been approved, the EIR has been approved, and phase 1 has been approved. It's a 9-phase project. So Rough and Ready and Penn Valley are 2 of the 4 disadvantaged communities in Nevada County. And so this is really a project to serve those 2 communities. I don't see either one as disadvantaged, but according to statistics, they are. And in this case, it really helps us. So we have been funding this through property taxes. It's been getting harder to get some of these projects funded through NID, given the current makeup. When the governor came out with the new budget proposal, one of the items that really caught my attention was that he is proposing $1.3 billion to provide a dependable supply of water to small disadvantaged communities, which Rough and Ready and Penn Valley qualify. And so we're looking into going after that money. So that once if we can secure that money, we need your support, and saying, hey, Penn Valley wants in on this. We could do the whole project at once, probably upgrade the water treatment plant at Lake Wildwood. And that would be a home run if we can get that money. Overall costs pre-COVID and some of the inflationary spikes were around $20 million. They've probably gone up from now. So that in the nutshell is what the backbone extension program is all about.
So Rich,
Yeah.
if I may, I would suggest that in light of this, that the Penn Valley MAC make a motion to suggest to Supervisor Hook that we support NID in the backbone extension.
It'd be helpful.
Yeah, Teresa, I think you really cut to the quick of it there. And Rich, are you, as far as securing the funding, is there assistance needed in research, or is that, do you have all your ducks in a row as far as that goes?
Research into how to engineer it, or
As far as funding of the availability of funding as this project goes on.
the budget has not been approved yet by the state. So we're kind of a month and a half early. And yet, yes, I think once we identify the true cost now, because things have changed, and we go after the money, if you support it like Teresa made the motion, I think that'd be great. Sue has already mentioned that she would talk to Megan and Brian Dolly and our state representatives to the fact that this is a great project for this community. So if we get all hands on board, then we're going to get this done.
MAC members, Supervisor Hook can also subsequently ask Senator Dolly, Assemblymember Dolly, Congressman LaMalfa, et cetera, to request funds from the infrastructure bill that's going to be coming forward in the Congress and in the Senate, the federal funds. So that's really what we need to get focused on, is we need to focus on those federal funds for infrastructure. And that starts with us as a MAC recommending this to Supervisor Hook, and then she takes it forward and looks for sponsorship and backing from the other legislators.
Can I ask a quick question? What's the time frame for the project?
If funding was available today, we'd get it. Let's start on it right away. We've already started on it. We've already funded phase one. But that's
what's the but what's the time frame? So we start today. Is it a 1 year? Is it a 5 year? How long is phase one?
It was normally a phased 9-phase project with one phase a year, but that doesn't mean we have to take 9 years. We could do it in 2 to 3 years if we get the money and using local contractors.
Yeah, I think that's a way of going after it is for us to point out that it's not driven by NID commitment or interest. It's driven purely by dollars. And that's an argument for Sue to use, is that this is a project ready to go, shovel ready, the term they abuse, but it's a shovel ready project, but it's just lacking the funding to make it happen.
Correct.
I think, Rich, that was my question. Is the project shovel ready?
Yes. Yeah, well, we're just completing phase one now.
Can you define phase one?
Phase one was supposed to be a pipeline into the Twin Cities church area, but there was some easement, discussions, and so we changed it over to more towards Ridge Road area and enhancement. So and there was a whole bunch of things we needed to expand and increase capacity closer to Grass Valley, and that's almost completed. That was almost a $2 million project, if I remember the numbers.
When phase one is done, will that supply the area that it goes through?
Yes.
Okay. At
I
this,
heard somebody made a motion, which I'd like to second.
let me head you off real quick, Bob. I was going to say, before we before we move and second and approve anything, let's make sure, I would like to give an opportunity for any public questions for Rich. I'll leave it a few seconds here for that.
Well, I have another question. Is there a map available of the routing, the specific routing through Rough and Ready and then Rough and Ready Road?
Hard to
No.
see. Oh,
Good. There is a map.
yeah. Oh no. Let me show you there's a whole report on it.
Okay.
These guys, I am amazed at the department heads and staff at NID because they really do their homework.
Rich, is the plan and the map available on NID's website?
Yes, I have not been able to access it, so I had to ask him to print it for me. But if you want a copy, I'll get you copies.
I'd like to have one.
Did we have a
just-
copy for the MAC
I'll
members?
be able to find it there.
I just put it in the chat and I can share my screen really quickly if you guys want to see it. You interested?
I'd like to see it at my leisure, so I'd like to see it on paper. Oh, good.
Perfect.
Okay, then
I like that one thing that Ryan, I apologize. Once that two important fire protection items that are associated with this project, once that pipeline cuts over into Wildwood, it will establish a road that will be a fire escape road to the east for residents of Lake Wildwood. It will also put, I can't remember if it's 35 or 55 fire hydrants along that line to fight fire. So this is, and now fire hydrants, you're going to hear from little internal discussion going on at NID. Fire hydrants are not really in our mission. They're not technically, maybe we're not supposed to put them in. The idea is those fire hydrants are the right thing to do because that gives firefighting capacity along that whole route that isn't currently there. And you know, I fought the 49er fire off Rough and Ready Road. I saw what defensible space could do. We saved the house that had it. And I also saw there was no water. And if we had fire hydrants coming through that road, that would probably would have been a whole lot different fire.
Rich, is that part of NID's proposal that's going to the state? Are they highlighting that it'll provide firefighting ability along that route?
That is in our engineered plans, yes.
That's great.
I only bring that up because there's been at least one director, so we can't put fire hydrants in. And no, we're going to put fire hydrants in. Why not? We're there. It's not that expensive to do it. It's the right thing to do.
I see Jeff has a question. Jeff, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair Everson. Good evening, MAC members. Good to see you, Rich. I apologize, I think most of your presentation, and this is a really exciting project. I just had a couple questions, and I apologize if you come in at the very beginning, but the hope is to try to make sure that the governor includes this for obviously, I think, for all the entire funding for the entire project, or is it just specific phases that we're really trying to seek support for funding?
If I want the whole thing, you know, if we have the whole thing, we get it done cheaper. You know, we don't have to move in, move out, different crews. We also are a year ago, I wasn't on the board, but about a year ago, maybe a little longer, this project was not included in NID going after revenue bonds. So, well, I can't comment more than that. It's just that there was some opposition to include them in revenue bonds. Other projects did make that cut. So it's a little bit of a fight for the money. And our budget hearings are going to start up in July.
Yep. And then last question, I apologize, you probably did cover this. What's the total amount for the total project?
Well, it was 20 million. That included, but it'd be a little more once we, pipe is doubled, yada, yada. And if we include going from Rough and Ready to Penn Valley, it's going to be a little more. And then there's some spurs off of that. But it picks up quite a few homes. They're currently going through Rough and Ready and down Rough and Ready Road. We pick up about 100. We can get 160 new hookups. So that's significant. And some of the people in that area are using raw water for domestic water. So I always thought that, if we couldn't get the state money, the county could find some way to find, some money to convert these people over to treated water. But that also, the spine where wells are going dry.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. And just one last comment I would just say is that putting the fire hydrants, I think speaks obviously to the current climate and the dangers of wildfire, but also to the insurance crisis that currently this county faces for homeowners. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. That's critical. That's a critical point. This benefits the entire community because it will make it much more affordable for regular people to get fire insurance. And Rough and Ready is one of the hardest places to get fire insurance currently. So thank you.
It certainly seems.
We've had so many fires. So right now, so you talk about time frame. There are 4 scenarios. We haven't had much of a growth in this area up until 2017, but in the last year in the NID district, we've grown 1.2% population, 2.2% increase demand for treated water. So we have a scenario of different scenarios, 4 of them. We could hit, Lake Wildwood Water Treatment Plant could exceed its capacity by the year 2024, 2027, 2031, or 2037. Depends on what scenario. I think we got a few years to make this happen, but not much more than that.
Okay. Barring any other questions, I would think that now would probably be a good time to make a motion, as Teresa stated earlier, that the MAC drafts a letter of support on behalf of NID in the Backbone Extension Program. Is there anything I'm leaving out of that, Rich?
We go to different areas, so to identify it from the E. George to the Lake Wildwood water distribution system.
And if I may be so bold, Chair Everson, it is actually to make a motion that the members of the MAC encourage Supervisor Hook to support this project.
Be so bold.
I second the motion.
Okay.
And hold on one second. Did you guys want to add in there that, because I know Rich's original request was that the county help NID find any available funding for it. And that's pending research, obviously. Like we would need to research and make sure the county even could play a role there.
I think absolutely, especially with the sort of ethereal we could. Yes, of course we could. So yes. Okay, so
Basically, our motion is to is to write a letter in support, which will include all of these things.
Good.
We make the members of the MAC make a motion to request that Supervisor Hook support NID in gaining funding from state, federal, and county sources to provide for the backbone extension, the E-George, the technical terminology, from Grass Valley to Penn Valley, including any spurs deemed necessary.
Okay, but Ryan stated he was going to write, that we would write a letter, we would send a letter. So what are we doing? Are we making just a motion to sue, a recommendation to sue, or are we making a recommendation for the chair to write a letter to sue with the max and detailing what we are asking her to do?
I would propose that the former, that we are having Supervisor Hook. We're doing this in support of Supervisor Hook, in support of.
So we're just making a motion. Okay.
And Supervisor Hook is with us now, so she'll be hearing us talking about asking her to support NID's bid for financial support of the backbone extension.
Yeah, but I think if you put it in writing, you end up with something that can be placed in minutes at other meetings, the board read at the Board of Supervisors. I think it's just that's the way we should always communicate this kind of stuff with Sue. Is the MAC writes a letter to her recommending this.
It gets put into writing, like no matter what. That's how the process works. Like whatever you all decide to make a motion on, whatever your recommendation is for Supervisor Hook will end up in written format for her.
Yeah, if I could just jump in too, just to highlight, Sarah's correct. And if you go back and look at the bylaws, that's how we'll do it. And so whatever the MAC decides to make a motion, we'll draft in a written recommendation letter and then have the chair sign, and then that'll be forwarded over to the supervisor.
And there we have it. So with that, we will make a motion for the MAC to draft a letter of support for Supervisor Hook. And that will be drafted and will receive my signature. Am I missing anything?
Well, we need to vote on it.
Okay, so forgive me. And we'll just go down the list here. Teresa Dietrich.
Yes.
Doug Moon.
Yes.
Rick Noley.
Yes.
Bob Winters.
Yes.
And that is a yes from Ryan Everson. Motion carries.
Ren, are you able to tell me who seconded? I don't remember.
I did.
You did. Okay.
Way back when.
Yeah, I do remember that now.
Yes, the original motion was Teresa and the original second was Bob.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. It's going to take a community effort to make this happen, and this is a great start.
And thank you, Rich. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you for the forward thinking. The fire hydrants is the most refreshing thing I've heard all week. Thank you very much.
They work because they have water. Yeah.
Sarah or Rich, how are we going to get a copy on paper of this plan? I'd like to see it.
I'll deliver one to you on Saturday morning.
Great. Thank you.
Oh, Bob, did
Anybody?
you mean NID's plan, or did you mean the motion that we just, the recommendation?
NID's plan
Oh.
with the map.
Okay. And then did you also see the link in the chat? There's a link there too that takes you to that map. Just so you know.
I didn't, but if I got it on paper, that's the way I really want to see it.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so I guess that wraps up that portion. So that will find us moving on to item number 5. And that brings us to Brad Torres from Nevada County Department of Public Works with an informational presentation regarding something that you may have seen come through your mailbox. That's how I came to find out about it. A District 1 sanitation rate study and their proposed fee schedule for the next few fiscal years. So with that, I will hand it over to Brad Torres. Brad, take it away.
Thank you, Chair Everson. I'm going to see if I can't share my screen here. Can y'all see that okay? Okay, so moving through, we'd like to thank the Municipal Advisory Council for letting us present to you this evening. Hopefully we can present some helpful information and generate some answers to some of the questions you may have related to the wastewater fee study and the resulting proposed rate adjustments. So the presentation outline, we really want to focus on a few things: the rate background, how these rates were established, how we invest these funds back into the district and its infrastructure once they're received, rate making objectives and considerations, what factors that were took under consideration before going down the path of conducting the rate study, and what we did with some of the information once that rate study was underway and completed. We're going to talk a little bit about the Proposition 218 process, the requirements of that process, and then the resulting public outreach efforts that we made coming through that process. Want to note that the data and the projections that you're going to be looking at this evening are focused on the next 5 fiscal years. So that'll be fiscal years 21-22 through fiscal year 25-26. And then we'll be looking at findings and recommendations. We'll take a look at the zones in the Penn Valley area, what the projections are showing based on the rate study findings, and what adjustments will really be necessary in order to continue to be able to provide core services as a wastewater district. So Nevada County Sanitation District, it's a dependent special district of Nevada County. And what that means is that even though we share the name of Nevada County, we're recognized as an independent district, that it's funded solely by the rates that we generate through our customers. At NCSD, we provide wastewater service to 10 areas or sewer zones in Western Nevada County. Those zones include the communities of like Wildwood, Lake of the Pines, North San Juan, Gold Creek, Penn Valley, Mountain Lake Estates, Cascade Shores, Eden Ranch, Higgins Village, and Valley Oak Court. And altogether, we have roughly 5,600 residential connections, 15 commercial connections, and a little over 700 properties that have secured service or capacity through the district, but have not yet developed those parcels. In each of these zones, we provide wastewater collection, treatment, and disposal services 24 hours a day, every day of the calendar year. And our collection system, it consists of 110 miles worth of underground pipeline, and just over 1,100 manholes, 35 lift or pumping stations with standby generators, and about 445 septic tanks that the collection staff is responsible for maintaining. We have 8 dedicated wastewater service workers that are very busy keeping this portion of the operation running smoothly. Now, our treatment division, they're responsible for the 10 wastewater treatment facilities that we operate. And these plants, they vary in size and complexity, but they all require specialized certification in wastewater treatment. On average, these facilities, they treat around 1 million gallons of wastewater a day, removing the portion of the wastewater and then returning the clean, high quality water back into the environment. And to keep these plants compliant with the state mandates and in good working order, there are 6 wastewater treatment plant operators assigned to that task. There are also 3 electrical mechanical staff that jump back and forth between these 2 divisions of the district and perform preventative maintenance activities, rebuild equipment, and assist with emergency response. So you see before you 3 columns in this chart. The column on the left is our operations and maintenance service charge. The center column is our capital service charge. These are the two charges that if you are a customer of the district, you see on your tax bill. And then the third column there is the date that the last service charge was applied to any of those zones, or the last day that we had a rate adjustment for any of those zones. And these charges, as I mentioned, they're included on the annual property tax bills. Payments are received biannually by the district, and customers within the district don't receive monthly bills like many utilities send out. It's a semi-annual billing process. You'll notice a wide variance with the charges between the zones, and there's many factors that contribute to that. Number of connections, the size of the collection system, the complexity of the treatment system, and permit requirements to maintain compliance. And all of these things are factored into the amount that we need to recover as a district for the volume of wastewater treated. Another major factor is that there's no sharing of funds between these zones. Rates generated in Mountain Lake Estates, for example, can't be applied for repair or infrastructure needs in Gold Creek. Each zone has to be self-sufficient. And we as a rural district, we're not able to benefit from the economy of scale of some of the larger municipalities. It's just not available for our small customer base. With all that in mind, there are several objectives and considerations that went into the rate making process. Financial stability being probably the primary driver. To function as a district, we need to be able to fund our operations and our projected capital and maintenance costs. And all of these items have continued to increase over the course of the last 10 plus years since the last rate adjustment for the sanitation district. We want to meet the district's reserve fund targets. I mean, these reserve funds, they act as a buffer. They take the impact of both the costs of unexpected events or equipment failures and replacements, and allows us to pay our bills. The district billing only twice a year, there's a required cash flow balance that allows us to run our operations and pay bills on a day-to-day basis. And the target balance is generally 50% of our annual operation costs, plus an average of our capital improvement projects. And it's important to note that in the next 5 years, not all of the reserve targets are proposed to be met. And that's because some of these are proving to be a challenge for some zones with varying overall costs and revenue capabilities or capacities in those zones to be able to meet those in that 5-year window. We also took a hard look at ratepayer equity. Each zone pays its own direct costs and then a proportionate share of overhead costs. And these shared costs include things like fleet vehicles and equipment, insurance, safety equipment, other items that we need, but we don't necessarily want to pay for 10 of each so that each zone can have their own piece of equipment. And this allows the cost to be shared based on actual use. And one other important note is that the standby charges are not proposed to be revised, and there will be no forced connections to the system as a result of this rate study. Combining zones is another thing that we're pretty excited about as a district, where zones are close enough to allow for shared use of sewer facilities. We can cut costs by sharing administration and operation costs and reduce our CIP budgets, our capital improvement budgets, and also our maintenance requirements by shifting those and consolidating those zones. We also took a transition under account, trying to spread the increase over a number of years to attempt to kind of mitigate one large one-time increase in any zone over one calendar year. And then the rates, we typically are evaluating those every 5 years and adjust as needed. And we're going to continue to do that moving forward. And that brings us to the rate study process and Proposition 218. And we have a few requirements based on this process and this proposition. The rates have to be based on actual cost of service. There has to be a direct correlation between the cost to run a utility efficiently and the amount you charge customers to allow that to happen. We have to notify owners or ratepayers that this process is taking place, which is the notice that Chair Everson brought up in the introduction there. And then the basis for which these rates are calculated must be demonstrated. And in order to do that, we contracted with an outside consultant to evaluate the district's costs and the current revenues and establish a basis for any requested rate adjustments that we may be seeking. And then the last requirement, there has to be a public hearing held 45 days after the notice is sent out, and that hearing is scheduled for June 22nd. So the next thing that we've done as a district is we've undergone some public outreach. The need for the rate study has been discussed over the past several years during the budget process with the Board of Supervisors. The need for the rate study has been discussed with the Sanitation District Advisory Committee. Notices, as we mentioned, were sent out to property owners and ratepayers. We issued a press release. We've utilized social media to try to get the information out as to why we're seeking these adjustments. And then you have a website that we developed that contains helpful information to kind of explain district costs. It includes a copy of the rate study. And there's also an informational video that I'd like to share as part of this presentation now, and when we get back, we can continue the presentation. So I'm going to attempt to do this without too much fanfare. And we'll do that now.
Hi, I'm Brad Torres, Wastewater Operations Manager for Nevada County Sanitation District. We're talking to you here today from this spot because it's the clear, clean water just 100 yards down from our wastewater treatment plant. As a district, it's our goal to provide safe, reliable sewer service to over 14,000 customers in western Nevada County. We work hard 24 hours a day, every day of the year to collect, convey, clean, and treat over 365 million gallons of wastewater each year. Thanks to you, our efforts help protect public health and keep our local waterways safe and clean for our county's residents to enjoy. To meet the goal of providing safe, reliable service to our customers, the district recognizes the need for ongoing improvements to infrastructure, reducing debt, and building sound reserve funds. With these current and future needs, for the first time in over a decade, the district is proposing changes to the sewer service charge over the next 5 fiscal years. Proposed changes would become effective July 1st of each year starting July 1st of 2021. Currently, it costs a little over 1.5 pennies to collect, treat, and release 1 gallon of clean, high-quality water back into our waterways, perform minor critical upgrades, as well as ongoing maintenance and repairs. To ensure that we can continue to provide these critical services year-round, it will cost about a penny more a gallon in 5 years' time, bringing that cost to around 2.5 pennies per gallon by the year 2026. You might be asking, where will the 2.5 pennies be going and how are they used? And that's a good question. When sewer customers drain their sinks and bathtubs or flush their toilets, that wastewater comes to us. We safely collect it and move it through the 110 miles of underground pipeline to one of our 10 treatment facilities. NCSD has been treating water in our community for over 55 years. And in order to keep doing so effectively, we need to continue to invest in our system. Even though we've been talking pennies, we know that those pennies add up to dollars, and we're able to do a lot with your dollar. While you can see some of the results from decades of sewer improvements, you might not know exactly how your sewer bill is invested every year. Typically, sewer rates should be adjusted annually. This is partially due to increases in things like electricity, gas, chemical and fuel costs that are required to run our operations. For every dollar you pay on your sewer bill is divided between daily operation and maintenance, about 82 cents of that dollar, and repayment of our construction program debt, the other 18 cents. Through project management, employee training, a solid preventative maintenance program, and other cost-saving measures, we make sure that every dollar is going as far as it can. We've steadily performed core services, and staff is now taking on tasks that had historically been contracted out in order to cut down costs. Also, the district will be consolidating 5 existing zones into 2 zones beginning in fiscal year 21-22. The consolidations will join zones that are located close enough to one another to allow the shared use of sewer facilities. Combining maintenance and administrative expenses in these areas will help to reduce the district's wastewater operation costs. We're working hard to upgrade our system with modern technology and enhancing our remote capabilities so that we can continue to deliver reliable service and protect our communities now and in the future. Studies for design and implementation of these new technologies, work geared toward preventing stormwater from making it into our system, and odor control and even ways to save and recover energy are now underway. Although our aging wastewater network is still serving our community reliably, some components are reaching the end of their service life. Maintaining the treatment systems and collection pipeline for an operation of this size is expensive. For example, if we needed to replace a damaged or worn out section of wastewater pipeline, it can cost up to $1 million per mile. And there are some components in our treatment plants that when it comes time to replace them, come with a price tag of nearly $800,000. Those 2.5 pennies we mentioned earlier will help these upgrades take place, ensuring we can provide you with reliable service every time you flush. These increases will also allow us to build a modest reserve to cushion the blow of unexpected events and minimize cash flow complications related to a semi-annual billing cycle. These new rates will help protect Nevada County every day and in the event of an emergency or changing events. NCSD, through an independent consultant, has conducted a rate study and will continue to do so every 5 years. This will help us to prioritize projects, personnel, and the obligations required to return clean, safe water into the lakes, rivers, and streams of Nevada County, keeping them healthy and beautiful. Once the rate study is complete, we weigh that against factors such as cost of natural resources, population, and needed improvements across our service area. The result is a 5-year rate schedule backed by our board of directors that allows us to do the work we set out to do. Your wastewater bill is an investment in that work. Nobody likes higher utility bills, but when it comes to community wastewater infrastructure, millions of dollars are needed to maintain an aging but reliable system. We are operating more efficiently, acting more sustainably, and working more collaboratively with our community partners to make decisions to help our county both now and for future generations. Your 2 cents matter. Every cent matters if it means keeping our community's lakes, rivers, and streams beautiful and safe. If you have more questions, please visit us at www.mynevadacounty.com/NCSD rates for more information. Or you can email us at ncsdrates@co.nevada.ca.us. Nevada County Sanitation District would like to thank you for your efforts in protecting public health and our local waterways.
So we thought that video did a good job of highlighting some of the equipment and maintenance activities that the district staff performs. And it's also nice for staff to not only show you where the dollars are going, but also to showcase some of the important work they're able to accomplish for their customers. So in this next slide, just as a quick review, the rate study process, each zone, we wanted to make sure we looked at our revenue requirement projections and to make sure that we're kind of getting a big picture. Although the data that you're looking at is focused on the next 5 years, we took a 10-year plan to make sure that we are looking at our expenses, our revenues, and our reserves that is going to be sustainable for that longer period of time. The second step, cost of service allocations, really wanted to allocate the revenue requirements among the customers in proportion to their use of the system. And then the rate design itself, we really wanted to derive the rates per equivalent dwelling unit, which is the measurement of wastewater service, so that the charges are proportionate to the cost of service. Really make sure we're only asking for charges that are needed to be able to run our operations. And then we want to balance those rate making objectives that we talked about earlier into these decisions. So this slide shows some of the assumptions used in the model. Modest CPI for most inflationary areas. And then we also included assumptions like the standby charges. They're included as non-rate revenue, which reduces the revenue needed from the annual service charges. We have the zone consolidations that we mentioned earlier, Lake Wildwood consolidating with Penn Valley and Valley Oak Court, and then Lake of the Pines consolidating with Higgins Village. And then also we have shared costs that are allocated to each zone, and that's based on a 3-year rolling average of the historical operation and maintenance costs. So then again, we're making sure that zones are only being charged out of those shared costs based on what their actual usage is of the shared equipment. And then the last one being the reserve targets. And the way we calculated those is we take a 10-year average of the CIP plan plus 6 months of our operation and maintenance expenses. So each zone, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but just to review, this table here shows our projected capital improvements over the next fiscal years through 2930. O&M expenses, again, they're specific to each zone. The shared expenses we share off of that 3-year historical average. And then making sure that our existing debt service is also covered. And the CIP is important because including this in the costs that we are looking at, our systems are not new. I mean, most of our systems are aging systems, about 30 years old. And we're having to go through and maintain what is proving to be a very reliable system, but end of service life for a lot of these pieces of equipment, it's reaching that time. So the rate design, we wanted to generate rates that generate sufficient revenue for the district. Again, operating expenses are important, capital expenditures are important, and our existing debt service is important. But that reserve target fund is also proven to be something that's very critical for us as a district. That 6 month of O&M expenses and that 1 year average, or that 1 year of the average annual CIP for that 10-year projection, those two together giving us our capital target balance. And you'll see that in the coming slides. And then we wanted to make sure that these rates generate reserves to meet that total target reserve by fiscal year 25-26, which is the last of the 5 years in this proposal. And then rate increases, we want to make sure that they align with the cost of service and that they're transitioned over those multiple years to reduce annual increases. So there's a few slides here. I'm going to actually jump ahead to just a few of them to the consolidated zones here in Lake Wildwood, Penn Valley, and Valley Oak Court, because this is one the subject matter of this council, and also it's an exciting move for us because a few years ago we installed the Penn Valley Pipeline project that allowed for this consolidation to take place between Lake Wildwood, Penn Valley, and Valley Oak Court, and it's good for a couple of reasons. One being reduction of O&M costs between the 3 zones. We'll have 2 facilities that will be able to decommission, which means we don't have to plan for capital improvements in those 2 zones. We don't have the operations and maintenance of those 2 treatment facilities, and we'll be able to share costs. And it opens up really development for the Penn Valley and Valley Oak Court community, and then also helps spread the cost of treatment for the folks in the Lake Wildwood community by bringing more customers into that zone. So the table you're going to see before you now reflects a few things. So the solid black line with the dots that you see there, that's the total revenue at current rates, where we're sitting with these 3 zones combined. The dark green area shows the shared expenses of the district. The light green area shows our daily operation and maintenance expenses for the district. And then the blue shows our debt service, which covers debt from past treatment plant upgrades or pipeline projects or other capital improvements that have happened in the past. And then the tan area represents the minor capital improvement projects that we have planned over the next 5 years. The table you're seeing now also shows a couple of things. So part of the plan for this 5-year rate adjustment is, and the consolidation of these 3 zones, is we want to make sure that all these zones are equalizing. In the current plan, if you see in that dashed red line over fiscal year 23-24, all 3 of these zones and their rates will balance on that 3rd year, because currently there's some fluctuation and difference between the 2 zones. You notice Valley Oak Court is paying significantly higher rates. Part of that is due to there only being 7 homes on the system. So the cost for operations, maintenance, and upkeep of that zone was being shared over just those 7 customers. And being able to consolidate and bring them in with the other zone, it's a fairly minimal contribution to the treatment plant, but it provides a definite, some definite assistance for the folks inside of that zone. The table you see at the bottom of your screens there, you see a dark green dotted line. That line represents district funds if there no fund balance or without any increases made to the proposed rates. The solid green line you see represents district's reserve fund balances with the proposed rate increases. And then that blue dotted line that you see going across there, the blue solid line with the dots, represents our target reserve balance, which is really where we need to be as a district in order to provide core services, meet our annual billing requirements, and to really be able to cushion blows of unexpected events or capital improvement projects as they come about. So moving forward, again, this is a zone that for South County. And then this last slide essentially is a combined slide showing those rate increases or totals for all the zones over the next 5 fiscal years. And it's important to note that the reason they're broke out in the O&M and the capital costs separately is because that's the way they show up on your tax bill. This particular adjustments are focused solely on the operations and maintenance side of that tally. And again, with the information that we talked about earlier, looking to provide some financial sustainability for the district. And that is my last slide. So I was going to stop sharing now, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions by the council.
I, of course, have questions, Brad. That was a lovely presentation. Gosh, you could be hosting on A&E or someplace. You have the right voice and presentation for that. So is there a specific place that citizens can go currently to determine exactly where they're at in the zone and by definition? Like, I know I live on Lazy Valley, so am I on just the Penn Valley right now?
So I believe a portion of Lazy Valley is, and I'd be happy to look that up for you. But there is an option. So you go to mynevadacounty.com, go to the wastewater section under public works, and there are maps there that show district boundaries, and you can find out if you're inside of those boundaries or not. The other important website that we're trying to make sure that everybody is able to take a peek at is the one that was listed in the video there, the www.mynevadacounty.com/NCSD rates. And that one has got all of the information related to the rate study, information related to our costs as a district, why small districts pay more than large districts, and also information that points to district boundaries.
Oh, maybe Sarah would put, yes, Sarah put it in the chat. She is so good. I love her. I want to adopt Sarah. So when you showed that slide that showed the what's going to happen to the funds for reserve versus if we don't get this through, or if we do get this through, so that's essentially your rainy day fund for emergency repairs. Like, what if that aging system at Lake Wildwood goes kaput? You're trying to get the reserves together to make sure that you can afford to rebuild it or put it together or whatever, right? Is that what
so the reserves that we're proposing with this rate increase are probably not that drastic. It would be nice to be in that position. Really what those reserves are looking at is 6 months worth of operating expenses.
Okay.
And then the capital improvement projects, which are not the major ones. I mean, we have some major projects that we'll be trying to seek funding, or something that you have to go out for financing or something like that. Those aren't necessarily included in some of these that we're looking at now. It's more of the minor ones, like pump replacements or rebuilding of some of our lift stations, or generator replacements, which are proving to be extremely important with the PSPS events over the past couple of years. So that's what those funds are really including. That target balance, that's what it's covering, not necessarily a full plant or a full system replacement.
Okay, and what about currently some residents of Penn Valley have an additional fee on their property taxes like Wildwood does. If you combine those 3 areas into one zone, how will that affect those property tax bills that have an additional fee on them currently? Will that continue, or will everybody have it, or how will that work?
So additional fee. I'm curious as to what you mean. It's separate from the operation maintenance and the capital?
There's an additional line item on a property tax bill for Lake Wildwood. I believe it's like $75 or some such amount, but I don't have that on. I don't believe I have it on my property tax bill. I remember showing property. I'm a realtor. I'm a real estate broker. So I remember having some clients that really dug into all the costs in living in certain neighborhoods in Penn Valley, and it was a little bit more on the property tax bill because of a sewer bond, I believe.
So that charge wouldn't be from the district. The only 2 charges that we impose are those 2: that operation and maintenance, and that capital charge. That may be from another assessment from another district.
Okay, I'll check on that. Okay, that's I think the end of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Brad, if I could jump in, I don't have it in front of me, but I do seem to remember reading in the newer Penn Valley area plan that the expected life, the life expectancy or whatever we're going to call it on the existing wastewater treatment plant, I think it said it was 10 years. I don't remember, but at any rate, whatever it is, regardless, for your rainy day fund and your capital improvement, when improvements are made and when updates are made to your guys' systems and stuff, is it a piecework kind of thing where you replace one machine at a time or one section or what? Or is there, I guess my question really is there going to come a day when you guys are just going to drive a bulldozer through that place and just start from scratch? Are we going to be...
If that day ever came, I would hope that I wasn't here to see it. But no, it's more the first option, Jerry Everson. It's you upgrade as systems age, certain components age quicker than others. For instance, in the past couple of years, we've replaced things like grit control, or we've coated existing concrete infrastructure so that the coating adds that service life to the structure as opposed to it degrading the concrete and having to replace the entire structure. We've recoated our structural steel inside of some of our components to preserve the life of those components. So it's really a game of prioritizing and utilizing the funds we have and the skills we have. The other thing that we've been doing is taking a lot of these tasks in-house and self-performing this work instead of shopping it out and saving on contractor costs and things like that. So to answer your question, it's most definitely a piecemeal approach. We take it as it comes. We try to plan for either the most critical or the most problematic. We have a pretty robust CMMS capital assets plan where we track our maintenance activities. If we have components that are breaking or having to be rebuilt more than others, that's obviously the focus for our replacements. But yeah, so we just try to stagger those so that it's not hitting all at once.
And that, I think you just summed it all up right there. So you have a fairly linear, predictable maintenance and capital improvement. So we'll call it a schedule, and there's no unexpected spikes as a rule. Generally, I mean, you're going to jinx me, but generally, the answer to that question is we try to plan the best we can to minimize any of those spikes. Murphy's Law tends to have its way with most folks, especially if they go, yeah, we're never going to have an issue. But generally, we're able to predict those things. Like our camera crews, for instance, Lake Wildwood has 35 miles worth of pipeline underground in just the Lake Wildwood community. Every year we pressure clean about 450,000 square or linear feet of that pipeline, and we video inspect about 45,000 feet worth of pipeline to be able to look and see areas that are showing more wear than others, so we can plan improvements and again piece that out. So we're not repairing stuff that we don't have to, but only repairing the stuff that we need to making sure that funds are spent responsibly.
Hey, Brad.
Yes.
I just pulled my property tax bill, and what Teresa's talking about, there's a line item, there's 3 line items, and they all have the same phone number attached to them. So that may be why people think they're all the same from you guys. But the line items characterized this way. It's 3 letters, CSA, and then 16-Western CO Solid Waste System. And on my tax bill, it's $52.84.
Brad, this is Tricia Tilton. So I'm the Director of Public Works, and I can chime in. That is for your solid waste taxes. So this is a tax that was voted in many years ago. And so it's charged to maintain the McCourtney Road transfer station and the closed landfill in Western Nevada County.
Okay,
and it has
thanks.
the same number. Yeah, it's the same number because it's the same community development agency.
Thank you very much, Tricia. Thank you for explaining that.
And Brad, one thing I will share with you from kind of a non-scientific poll, talking to people at the golf course, the biggest thing people are reacting to is the size of the increase. It's over 50%. At the end of 5 years, of things raised at least 50%, and they're questioning why it has to go that fast.
Part of that is the rate at which costs are increasing. Over the last few years, it's been significantly a steeper curve than it had been prior. We presented this morning to the Sanitation District Advisory Committee, and I'll share with you a similar explanation that I gave them. But I can speak to my 7 years here with the district. Coming in, we knew that we'd have to be looking at this scenario in the coming years. It took a few years to really weed out and gain all of the efficiencies that we could, making sure that we are running at as lean as we could as a district, so that any ask that we would come to the communities with would be a legitimate ask and not just based off of wherever rates were when I came into the district. At that point, when we reached that baseline, it then took time to go and bring our consultants in and come up with the rate study so that we could, again, evaluate our operations costs and be able to tie that into what a rate would be that would allow those to take place. I'm sorry to distract you. Okay. I just had a message come through in the chat. I apologize. I'm distracted easily. Shiny things and essentially, now that we have that information, we have a solid baseline of where we can run as lean as possible and efficiently as possible, then we can come up with real costs of what we need to operate as a district. And unfortunately, in the time that it took to put those things together, cost of living and increases have also skyrocketed, which is affecting these projections, frankly.
Brad, if I might make a suggestion, it might be important to add into your presentation the fact that now that you are doing the repairs in-house, essentially, since that is not contract labor and that's local employees, you are returning a portion of this right back into our economy because your employees live here, they're spending here, they're eating here, their kids are going to school here. So a big portion of those funds now that you're using for employees are going right back into our economy. And I think that that's a really important, message that needs to come across as well.
That is a great point. Thank you.
Brad, I thought I was also going to add, so most of these zones haven't seen a rate increase for 10 years. So if you amortize the proposed increases over the total 15 years, so the 10 years where we didn't do increases plus the 5 years we're proposing, it almost comes out to CPI increases or consumer price index, aka inflation, which is interesting. And we plan to share that when we go to the board on June 22nd as well. Just thought I'd share that.
That's excellent data.
Yeah, but people never remember that part. They don't remember the years you didn't raise the rate. They just remember the years you did raise the rate.
So Brad can announce all that in his TV voice, Rick, and that will help soften the blow.
I just try really hard not to put people to sleep.
Now, Brad, can I ask you also, once the reserves are built up and you've reached your goal, what kind of, you might not even be able to answer this really without being prescient, but what might we expect in 5 or 6 years when another rate study is done? Once your reserves meet your expectations, is there a possibility that rates may even go down, or are we? You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, and that's a great question, and I guess the answer I'll give you without trying to read the future too much is, I mean, the goal is to not have spikes ever. It's unfortunate that that's where we're at now. The projections that we're trying to present now is to get to a point where we're operating soundly as a district. What I would tell you is that even during this current climate, we have one zone that is not looking at a rate increase, and we have one zone that's whose rates are dropping. So that's always on the table. Again, the whole process is structured around us not being able to charge more than what actual cost of service is providing. So that is an option. We'd be looking at that CPI increase probably indefinitely. But if that's included in the rates that we already have, that is conceivable that we'd look at either maintaining the same rates, or if we're exceeding a fund balance targets, we may be able to reduce rates at that point.
Very good, thank you. I think you've been put through the ringer by the MAC so far. I think now might be a good time to offer up a bit of time for any public questions for Brad. Anybody?
I think Gladys has a question, but she's on mute. Gladys, you have to unmute. There you go.
I just want to say something. I understand a lot of that stuff. I've been through all of that years and years and years. It doesn't stop. But Brad, as long as you're there, please give me a call tomorrow about my problems that I'm having with you and me talking. Please call me tomorrow.
I will call you tomorrow, and I think you'll be happy with our conversation, Gladys.
You're in the call. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Gladys. Anybody else got anything for Brad? Okay. Well, if that wraps it up on the public's part, and I will venture to say that wraps it up on the MAC's part, unless I'm overstepping my bounds. Anybody can interrupt me at any time. Okay, well, with that, thank you very much, Brad.
Thank you.
Information provided. Excellent presentation. And just one more note. I don't know if anybody saw it, but I went to YouTube. I grabbed the link to that video that you put up. I dropped it in the chat. I think that's an excellent resource. I was trying to explain to some of my coworkers today that live up the road here in Lake Wildwood what we were going to be talking about. And I feel like I should just send them the link to that video. So thank you very much.
And Sarah posted the other links in the chat to Chair Everson. So I think that between the 3 links, it's a really good presentation to share with other people.
Yeah, there's some really great resources there. I just spacebarred myself right off my page again. Okay, so I guess we can we'll move on to item number 6 then. Thanks again, Brad. Item number 6 being our ad hoc subcommittee updates. We've got our broadband subcommittee and we have our marketing subcommittee. Sarah, am I deferring to you for this, or should I? What do you got for me?
You can, or Teresa and I had a really good meeting for the broadband subcommittee. It just ended up being the 2 of us. I'm happy to give the report, but Teresa, I want to defer to you in case you want to.
Oh, no, you go ahead, Sarah, because you took the notes.
Okay. So, yeah, we had a really nice conversation where we kind of identified where we want to go next with the subcommittee. And we want to interview the folks from, I'm blanking on the company name, but Michael Anderson's company. He leads one of the companies that got one of the last mile broadband grants. So it's one of the vendors we haven't heard from yet. You know, as far as we know, they're not necessarily doing anything in Penn Valley. And so we wanted to get his lay of the land. Like what does he think are the opportunities or the challenges in Penn Valley? And then, yeah, we just talked more generally about, you know, the challenges with just staying within kind of our scope with the MAC, which is to identify recommendations to give to Supervisor Hook. And so those are just really going to come out of the conversations that we have with vendors. We also talked about some of the federal funding and new state legislation that's coming out around broadband. And I communicated to Teresa. Oh, and Carrie's on the phone, and I forgot that we were going to be giving this report out, so she might be able to chime in. But yeah, we talked about the county's broadband working group and the fact that we are following that legislation and that we are well aware of that funding that's coming down the pipe. And so there's going to be a third round of last mile broadband grants and potentially other funding opportunities too. It's still kind of early days around all of that, but you know, there could be some funding for line extensions, which you know, we all know somebody who lives like right next door to Comcast broadband service, but Comcast just won't give it to them. And so that's a case where they would need what's called a line extension. So, and then the last thing I told Teresa was that Supervisor Heidi Hall, and Jeff, you can correct me if I get this wrong, she serves on CSAC, which stands for the California something of counties. It's like, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Association of Counties.
Okay, great. So it's a state association that lobbies for the interests of counties. So she represents rural counties on their broadband working group. And so she is directly representing our and other rural counties' needs and desires in that group as they, you know, look for ways to expand broadband access. So it was actually it was a good meeting, and you know, there's clearly lots of work to be done on broadband, but yeah, we charted a path forward. And I don't think I've shared the notes on that with Bob and Rob, but Bob and Rob, they are in the agenda packet. So look in there. I'm sorry, I didn't think to proactively send those to you both. Does that sound good, Teresa? Did I miss anything?
No, you are so good, Sarah.
And then the marketing subcommittee met like a couple of weeks before that. So I forget, Doug, are you in that group?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Do you want to give the report out, or do you want me to?
Why don't you go ahead and I can chime in?
Yeah, great. So in the marketing subcommittee, we met with Don Rogers, Julia Stidham, and Mike Dobbins from TWI, which stands for the Wildwood Independent. And just basically talk to them about our objective of making more Penn Valley residents aware of the MAC's work in order to increase their involvement and participation in the MAC. And so we did some brainstorming about some ways that they could help us out, and they were very eager and willing to help us out. So it was a good meeting. As far as I know, they've run an announcement so far, announcing the Penn Valley MAC's regular meeting dates and just kind of like a blurb about what the MAC does, and the fact that we are seeking to fill 2 vacancies. And then we brainstormed some other things too, like we talked about how one way to increase engagement might be to run a little poll on social media, asking Penn Valley residents what areas of land development and land use they are most interested in. And so we came up with a draft poll. I saw Doug chimed in on it recently. And so one of our next steps is basically just to act on that, to get that out on social media. And we'll just have to think about how to craft it in such a way that we use it to bring people back to the MAC, the Penn Valley MAC. I think that was really it. That was the focus of that particular marketing subcommittee.
Right. I might chime in one thing that was an agenda item from the subcommittee previous meeting was to try to set up an interview on Channel 95 in Lake Wildwood with Sue and possibly our chair. And I hate to report that, that I've had absolutely no success. I do believe that Channel 95 is basically shut down at this time. I think it may have to do with COVID, but the individuals who are the volunteer leaders of it have not returned phone calls or emails, and the phone number that at the station left messages and nobody's returned calls. So, and today I went on Channel 95 2 or 3 times. I think it's off air right now. So it may resurrect itself in a few months when things open back up. But for right now, I think that's not an avenue for us, but I will continue to pursue it. And if it does open back up, I'll speak to someone about getting us on.
Doug, maybe we should approach Tom Fitzsimmons and try to get it on the town or something with Chair Everson and Supervisor Hook with Tom Fitzsimmons on KNCL.
KNCL, yeah, that's a good idea. Even KVMR, yeah.
Yeah, KVMR would be a good outlet too.
Yeah, definitely. Well, maybe that's okay. So that's for our next subcommittee meeting.
Perfect.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Sarah, Teresa, and Doug.
Oh, can I add one more thing, Chair Everson?
Please
I'm
do.
wondering, at these meetings, can we actually ask the people how they knew to come to the meeting? Because I'd like to know, I'm posting in Nextdoor and Facebook and places like that, and then we have the agendas going out in various places. I'd like to know where people actually found out that there was a meeting.
I did work that into.
It's a little bit late. Okay.
I did work it into my spiel during the public comment this evening to no real reply, but yeah, I really like that idea in an attempt to breed a little more familiarity among the names and faces here. I think that's a great idea.
Maybe we could put it in the chat.
Oh, yeah, there you go. There you go.
So,
yeah, great thought.
Yeah, so the people that I know, Kathy Seville actually texted me and asked for the link and I sent it to her. So anyways, I'm just curious.
Yeah, oh, that's perfect. I think that's great. Sort of, we'll call it research. Okay. Then item number 7 brings us to our future meeting format. We're talking about June 15th. Everything's going to be normal, right? Yeah. So a potential return to in-person meetings. I'll throw this over to Jeff, who's got the particulars. Jeff, what do you got?
All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Chair Everson. First thing I just want to say, I apologize, I'm not wearing a tie. I feel slightly naked, but it's good to be with you guys. I know I'm always wearing a tie, but I am a normal person too. But what I wanted to articulate was the real question, I think, of this item obviously is when can the MAC return? There's a number of you who have only participated virtually. And I think there is a great desire, and I think both from Supervisor Hook as well as myself, I think that there's a great benefit to me in person as well as the public. But with that being said, we do anticipate the governor has made announcements that potentially around June 15th, there'll be an announcement that potentially the current tier system in Nevada, in the state of California would be lifted and things essentially would be returning back to a certain type of normalcy. We'll see that when it comes. That being said, if we look at the MAC's next meeting, the next meeting would be on Thursday, June 17th. The announcement would be done on the 15th, so 2 days before that. And as you well know, our agenda posts on the 14th. Given the uncertainty of that announcement, my recommendation would be to continue forward and moving and assume, my recommendation would be to assume to meet virtually, plan for the next meeting being virtually in June. However, but in that time, staff would take actions to go ahead and start setting up for the anticipation that the next meeting in July would be in person. We would be reaching out to the Western Gateway Park and coordinating with them. Traditionally, until, up until COVID, we actually had a contract with them. So that's what we would do, is we would go ahead and to remind the MAC members, this is budgeted. We have funds available for the purposes of renting out a facility to do that. So cost is not an issue. Historically, we have done our meetings at the Buttermaker's Cottage at the Western Gateway Park. Of course, pending that, we would have to talk to Western Gateway Park, assuming that they would be open. So that'd be a question for them too. But I think staff, we would recommend that probably anticipate doing the next meeting virtually, but then following, we'll start working now this month to put forward so we can start moving back in person. Again, we don't want to get ahead of our public health department and of course the board of supervisors themselves. So that's kind of what my thought is for moving in person. I think the light is at the end of the tunnel, and the good news is we are getting very close to that light. And if all goes as hopeful, we can, the MAC can begin meeting in person again. So with that, I'll stop and answer any questions. And of course, I know Supervisor Hook's on the line here, so in case Shay wants to chime in as well.
What about a hybrid model, Jeff and Sue?
So a hybrid model, we could look at doing a hybrid model, but there would be components on how to do that in terms of really coordinating with the district, because a hybrid model would require us to have an ability to have a video present, right? And have you being able as set up, right? You would be set up, and then we would need for members who come in virtually to be able to participate. So we can look into that. I mean, you're the first commission who's asked that question, which I think is a good one. But there would probably be some costs obviously associated with that, but we can look into it. That's a great question, and I can follow up.
So Jeff, I would have a question about that. Just curious, so we can still follow that. Maybe we did offline. So would you have to have a whole thing set up, or would you just be able to do it off a laptop, just like we're doing here, and have those participants be able to participate? I mean, sometimes it is easier for people not to get, but let's talk about that offline, because I don't think that we have a big enough budget sometimes to bring in some of that. I don't know what is available at the Buttermaker Cottage. Like, you'd have to have a big screen TV or something. So we'd have to look at that, I think.
Yeah, we can follow up definitely offline. I mean, the key components to remember for a hybrid meeting would be a laptop would be sufficient to tune in, but then the question is making sure that the microphone's adequate so that the members can, so the person in the microphone can hear you.
Right.
Seeing you wouldn't be a problem. We could just use a general camera, I think. And then the question is you seeing them and hearing them. So we would need a sound system probably or something, and that's where we can follow up. Supervisor Hook, I'll follow up with you offline. We can kind of look and see what potentially that could look like, and what kind of costs associated or how difficult that might be.
Okay, good. Good meeting tonight, you guys. A lot of good information.
Yep. Thank you, Supervisor Hook. Jeff, real quick, is there any reason to think that we won't be going back to the Buttermaker's Cottage? Do you need to have any kind of contingency plan? Was there?
I mean, the contingency plan is to do what we're doing tonight.
Just keep doing this.
Yeah, and I think
fair enough.
The one thing I would mention to the council is that is important to note is the only reason that obviously that we're doing this virtually is because of COVID. Everyone knows that. But legally speaking, the commission is bound by the Brown Act. And the only way we're able to actually do this meeting and still compliant is based upon an executive order by the governor based upon COVID. So in time, unless there is certain legislation put forward to provide different requirements. But essentially the Brown Act says right now that without the governor's order, as written currently, the commission needs to meet in person. It can have potentially electronic components of people tapping in, but a quorum would need to be present in person. And so if that doesn't get changed and eventually we get out of the pandemic and that executive order is rescinded, then the MAC will be required to meet in person. And so, of course, there's certain legislation that's right now that's in the works to potentially modify that. But that's an important component because I think as us staff, we're anticipating that there probably will be efforts and, you know, when you have the literally entire country and almost globe going to virtual format and then completely reversing back, I can imagine there is, while none of us are, most of us are probably tired of Zoom, there are benefits to it for sure. But with that, I think unless that executive order goes away, we would just remain in Zoom, you know, I would assume. But there's no reason for me, honestly. I haven't heard anything yet to believe that that's still not the intended plan by the state. But we'll see.
All right, great. Thanks for that, Jeff. We will move on from that then to our general announcements. Does anybody have any? I see Teresa waving.
Of course. I see Mr. Goss is here from the Penn Valley Community Foundation, and I'm wondering if, Frankie, would you like to invite people to come and help decorate for the graduation at Ready Springs? If he can. Frankie, are you muted?
No, I'm on it now.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, this is a big thing for Ready Springs School, a graduation day, and we're going to use the foundation property as a holding for some of the vehicles, and as they finish going around, another one will go in and so forth. And we put up balloons and banners, and this year we're going to put up a 24 by 48 American flag along the side. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be kind of celebration of our students. So yeah, anybody would like to come out there, we're going to meet June 10th, and it's at get decorating, and at between 5:30 is when they start to come in. So
you're going to start decorating around 4? You're going to start decorating around 4 o'clock, Frank?
Yeah.
And do you need people to help with traffic?
Yeah, we need, and there's cones. We need people to place cones down there, so kind of directs the traffic. We'll have plenty of those from the chamber, and Gene Gilligan from the chamber has volunteered some help as well. So yeah, it's a great event for the community, see our students graduate.
And hopefully this is the last virtual graduation, right? Where they have to drive through and get their diploma. So got to make it special for the kids.
Yep.
And Frank, you need people right there at the community center property, right there next to the school. That's where you want us. That's
where we go. Yeah, right there. Yeah. And okay. You're supposed to, Ryan, you're supposed to be at my breakfast on Saturday morning. Where are you?
You will see me.
Okay.
I promise you.
I told all the guys, hey, we got the Mac chair. They're coming. He said, every Saturday, where's that guy?
He's still sleeping.
Still sleeping. Okay.
Hey, Ryan, even Rich Johansson can make that breakfast. You got to get there, buddy.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I'll get in gear.
Okay.
Even Gladys makes that breakfast.
Yeah. And thank you, Teresa, for giving me the link to get on tonight.
You're welcome, Frankie. Thank you for being here.
So Frankie, it's a good time to put a plug in for the foundation too.
Yes, right. We're moving along. We're painting a architectural, beautiful picture that'll be hung above the future home of the Penn Valley Community Center. And if you haven't seen the most exquisite barn, you're going to see one when we put that up. So that's what it's going to look like and fit right into the community.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Frank.
You're welcome.
Really looking forward to that.
Okay.
Frank, what about the fundraiser?
Oh, yeah, we're gonna, yeah, that's the other thing. Thanks for bringing that up, Teresa. Thank you, Gladys. Gladys has offered to give us the pond and the area there for a fundraiser. We call it a fundraiser gala for the community center. And it's gonna be, we have 3 dates picked, the last of July. It's either Friday, Saturday, for the third week, third and fourth week, second, third, and fourth week, yeah. And as soon as we find about our singer, performer that's going to be performing there, Reggie Hall will be our entertainer for the evening, and it'll be a great night to kind of kick off the foundation. So it'll be good.
Say something.
Got hands all over. Gladys, go ahead.
I wanted to tell you, Frank, I was going to tell you this tomorrow.
Yes.
Mine was going to surprise you, but I might as well surprise all of you. I'm working with Lacey Dalton to be there.
Oh, are you?
Yes.
Okay.
She
Holy
is.
cow.
Oh yeah, holy cow. She loves coming to my place.
Oh.
So I should know in about 5 days or 6 days.
And
For
folks,
sure.
there's
You
there's
just
no
gotta give me a
better
date
party.
because she's very busy, as you know, traveling all around. And all she needs is just the date to come the night and then the day that you're gonna have it. And she stays at my place. So just give me a date so I can let her know.
Okay.
But yeah.
Thank
Carol
you.
Powell is working with that, she's the one who got me involved with Lacey Dalton, that whole group. They are wonderful.
Yeah.
They are great.
And
Yeah,
there's no better
absolutely.
party than a party at Gladys's. It's the
Huh?
best. There's no better party than a party at Gladys's. It's always
Well,
the best.
it's a home, it says, come on in, have fun, enjoy, don't be snobbish. Just have
Right.
fun.
Thank
But
you,
anyway,
Gladys.
that was my surprise to tell you tomorrow.
I know. Okay.
Jeff, is that a raised hand for you?
Yeah, thank you so much. I just had a couple announcements I just wanted to provide to the MAC. One, and this is just kind of actually a side note regarding broadband. The governor's budget, the May revise came out, and there's a proposal of about $7 billion in broadband infrastructure.
Wow.
Much of that is middle mile, but there is last mile, and there's some also requirements and funding for current service providers, but that's the biggest broadband infrastructure bill for broadband in the state of California's history. So that's some exciting news, and I'm sure we can share more details with the subcommittee to report out to you. The big thing that I wanted to mention and just make an announcement is that District 2, the South County Area Municipal Advisory Council met last night for their first kickoff meeting. And so the South County Area MAC was established back in February, and this MAC is a little bit different from this body here, whereas their specific focus is to really be working and coordinating on the Higgins area plan process. This MAC really paved the way and kind of showed a success story and a model that South County is using. And so this MAC the Penn Valley MAC came up in discussion last night a couple times. And so one of the things that was discussed was wanting to potentially maybe get a representative, the chair, or other representatives to maybe come and speak to the South County Area MAC on the experience of doing the Penn Valley Area Plan. And really what the thoughts were on the best practices, how that went, is there any advice that this MAC could give to their MAC? So I wanted to relay that message, and I can coordinate with the chair offline off of that. But I thought that was pretty awesome. Again, I think that this group really has paved the way and really done some pretty exciting, innovative things. And so with that, my last plug and general announcement is this weekend, Nevada County Office of Emergency Services is going to be hosting a green waste disposal in Western County. And so I'll go ahead and throw in the chat that, but that is a free waste from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. From Friday, starting tomorrow, to Monday. Unfortunately, for most folks down here in the Penn Valley area, you would have to drive up to Western County for that. But I still think it's worth it to make note of that. As everybody knows, we are delighted to get, I don't know, maybe just a couple drops of water this afternoon, but it is not enough, and the fire season, as we are all well aware, is upon us, and it's going to potentially be a severe one. So we want to encourage folks to do what they can and do what we can as a county to help mitigate anything we can before that fire season starts. So I put it there in the chat. Feel free to share that online with anybody. And those are kind of some of my general announcements. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
So Jeff, can I just tail off on that 1 second? So just the other thing I want to point out too for that green waste is going to be a great program, as you know. You can go on Fire Safe Council or that link that Jeff just did too. But if you're interested and you want free mulch, that's what we did last year down here in Penn Valley, as you know, and that's going to be free as well. And that pickup is only on it's on the weekends. It won't happen. It can't happen at the same time. And they're going to have a loader there to load you. So if anybody's interested in mulch, which right now with the drought, it's really kind of a great idea because it holds that moisture when you do water around your plantings or trying to keep the weeds out. So another little freebie that goes along with that, I think that's going to be very helpful.
The link for the mulch program is also in that same link, and that is actually going to be on the 28th and 29th. So not this weekend, the following weekend, and then June 18th and 19th, which a couple weeks following that will be on Friday and Saturdays.
Just speaking of links and circling back just a little bit, Jeff, is the District 2 MAC, is their agenda and their minutes, is that stuff going to be available on mynevadacounty.com, or is that just?
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely, 100%. Absolutely. Of course, just like this MAC, they're bound by the Brown Act. Everything needs to be public. And so the one thing that we're still in the works in the next 2 weeks, or we're building out a website for them. But if you to go to there and to get and to look and learn more about them at this point, if you go to mynevadacounty.com and you can sign up for updates by going to notifications under How Do I, which is basically the same way people sign up for notifications for this MAC. And if you go to the Agenda Center, there's agenda packets there. But in a couple of weeks, we should have a website up. It'll be similar to this to your website in the sense they'll probably be off of District 2 supervisor's website. What I can do is make sure to coordinate with Sarah, and we can share that with the folks here. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to just skim through that. Okay. I'm gonna venture to say that does it for our general announcements, which would bring us to item number 9, which is me telling you that the next Penn Valley MAC meeting will be June 17th, 2021 at 6 p.m. And we will be doing that via Zoom, perhaps for the last time. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
And a second right here.
Second.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks,
Ryan.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Sarah, Jeff, Ryan.
And Sue.
Thanks, Gladys, if you're already there.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate the participation. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Jeff. Ryan, see you at breakfast.
I promise, Frank.
Okay, bye.